Hey friends, happy Sunday and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I am Taylor. I'm a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I share these What's for Dinner videos every Sunday to give you some new meal ideas and also to hopefully motivate you to cook more for your family. I know it can be hard to get motivated to cook. I was in this rut of constantly eating out. And 5 years ago, I was watching other people do What's for Dinners, and it motivated me to start doing my own, because if I was sharing the videos with y'all, then I would definitely be cooking. So I have a playlist of 5 years worth of these videos. If you're interested, that'll be linked down below. But let's go ahead and get into this week's What's for Dinner. Friday night, we just did spaghetti and salad. I like to keep dinner really simple on Fridays because that's usually when I go grocery shopping. And I don't know about you, but I am exhausted after grocery shopping. I don't want to do anything. So I always keep it simple. And so this was just some meat sauce, spaghetti and meat sauce, and then a salad on the side for those of us that like salad. Saturday night, we tried a new recipe called chicken noodle soup bake. I don't really know why they put soup in the title. It could have just been chicken noodle bake. It does have all the same kind of ingredients as chicken noodle soup, but it's not a soup, so I don't know. It seems weird. But anyway, we'll get into the recipe. I am starting off by bringing some salted water to a boil and then cooking up 1 pound of pasta. I chose this fun shape from Trader Joe's. My family really likes it, but you could really do anything kind of small, like rotini, I think is what was recommended in the recipe. And you're just going to want to cook your pasta according to the package directions and then drain it and set it to the side. Then I am using the same pot, and in that I am melting 1 tablespoon of butter, and then once it is melted, I'm going to add in some carrots and celery and onion. I did about 4 stalks of celery that I diced up, 4 carrots that I diced up, and 1 diced onion. And then I just let that cook for a little while till it started to get nice and tender. And then I added in some minced garlic. I just used the jarred stuff because I wasn't feeling like actually mincing garlic this night. And then I also added in 4 tablespoons of butter. Once that butter was melted, I stirred in 1/4 cup of flour, and I just stirred that around and let it cook for about 30 seconds. And then I added in 1 cup of milk and 2 cups of chicken broth, as well as some thyme, a bay leaf, and a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I just let that simmer for a little bit till it started to bubble and thicken up. While that was simmering, I mixed together 2 tablespoons of melted butter and 1 cup of panko. We're going to use this for a topping. Once the sauce was nice and thick, I removed the bay leaf, and then I stirred in my cooked pasta, as well as 1 can of drained peas, and then some cooked chicken. I cooked up 2 chicken breasts in the air fryer, but the recipe said to use 1 rotisserie chicken that you just took all the meat off and shredded it up. So you could use whatever you want. I just decided to cook up some chicken breasts in the air fryer. And then I also added in about 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese, mixed that all together really well, and then I sprinkled on the panko topping, and then this went in the oven on 350 for 25 minutes. So because this had veggies in it already, we just had this by itself. And I thought it was really good, but the kids didn't really seem to like it. And I think that's mostly my fault. I was in a hurry making this, and I don't think I cooked my carrots and onion and celery long enough, and they were still just a touch crunchy, not as soft as the kids would have liked them to be. Lily told me not to make it again, but I think if I did make it again, I would make sure I'm not in a hurry and I get those veggies super soft. But I thought it was really tasty. Sunday night we had meatloaf, au gratin potatoes, green beans, and a roll. I am using these cheesy au gratin potatoes that I had in the freezer. They're from Honey Baked Ham. They were given to me by a family member around Thanksgiving, and I just really wanted to get them out of the freezer. So I just cooked those up in the oven according to the box directions. Now for the meatloaf, this recipe comes from my Better Homes and Gardens cookbook. I've been making it since I got the cookbook when I was 17. So that's like 15 years ago. So in a bowl, I'm mixing together 2 eggs, 3/4 of a cup of milk, 2/3 of a cup of dry breadcrumbs. I use the Italian ones, so they do have some Italian seasoning in them. You can use plain. It pretty much tastes the same. I leave out the onion. I'm not a big fan of onion in the meatloaf. And then I add in some parsley, some salt. I do oregano, black pepper, and then 1.5 pounds of ground beef. This is going to look really wet. Some people like to add more breadcrumbs, but this is perfect for me. It holds together really well and turns out so moist. So I get it all mixed together, and then I get it in my loaf pan, and then it goes in the oven on 350 for an hour. Towards the end of the bake time, I mix together the sauce to go on top. I double the original recipe, so I do 1/2 cup of ketchup, 4 tablespoons of brown sugar, and 2 teaspoons of dry mustard, and then just mix that together really well. And then when the meatloaf comes out after an hour, if there's any grease like pulled at the top, you can go ahead and dab that off, and then spread the sauce on top, and then this goes back in the oven for another 5 to 10 minutes. And here is everything all plated up. I know we love the meatloaf. As I said, I've been making it for 15 years. I do not want to try any other meatloaf recipe. This is our absolute favorite. And then these au gratin potatoes were actually pretty good. I did not have high hopes for them, but you know, if you ever have some honey baked ham au gratin potatoes, give them a try because they're pretty good. And then the green beans were just the green beans that I always make, a can of green beans with a little bit of seasoning. I could link the video down below where I showed exactly how I make those. Monday night was our crock pot meal of the week, and I made some like chicken thighs with green beans and potatoes. I saw something similar to this on TikTok, but not exactly. I was just kind of winging it. So I've got some chicken thighs here in the bottom of my crock pot, and to that I'm adding some pepper, some salt, some paprika, and some garlic powder, and I'm doing that on both sides of the chicken. And then I'm going to sprinkle on 1 Lipton onion soup packet. And then I'm going to add on some washed and cut up little baby potatoes and some washed and like the ends removed of the green beans. Just add those on top of the chicken, and then add on another Lipton onion soup seasoning packet, as well as some garlic. And then I did 1/2 stick of unsalted butter and 1 cup of chicken broth. And then I just put the lid on this and let it cook on low for 6 to 8 hours. So here is what it looked like at the end of the cook time. I was going to try to take out the chicken and then like cut it up or shred it up. But as I tried to pick it up with the tongs, it was just shredding in the crock pot. So I didn't even have to take it out. And I just kind of shredded up the chicken in there. And then we served this over some rice. This was the night that we had karate. So I just made some instant rice like on the stovetop. It's not as good as the rice that I make in the Instant Pot, but it was quick. It was done in like 6 minutes. So I just dealt with it. But the chicken and the green beans and the potatoes turned out really good. I really liked the fresh green beans cooked in this. They did get soft, but they still just have like a fresh green bean taste, which the rest of my family doesn't really enjoy. But I thought it was delicious. And they did, like everything else, they would have just rather had a can of green beans on the side. Tuesday night we had beef and broccoli ramen. So I'm starting off by taking my broccoli, and I like to cook it up in the air fryer first because then it gets to be like as tender as we like it. So I'm just taking one head of broccoli and cutting it up, and then I've got it on my air fryer basket. I'm just spraying it with some olive oil cooking spray and then seasoning it with some salt and pepper, and then I put it in the air fryer on about 375 for about 10 minutes. Then I'm going to whisk together the sauce. Usually I would use beef broth in this, but I was actually out of my Knorr beef bouillon, and I had some cans of chicken broth that my father-in-law gave me, so I'm going to use those up. So I just use 1 can of chicken broth, and then I'm adding 4 tablespoons of soy sauce, 4 tablespoons of oyster sauce, 2 teaspoons of sesame oil, about half a teaspoon of ground ginger, half a teaspoon of sriracha, and 1 tablespoon of hoisin sauce. I whisk that together, and then I add in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Then I have some really thin steaks that I'm going to cut into little strips, and then I'm going to season those with salt and pepper. You can also make this recipe with ground beef, but we do prefer it with steak instead of ground beef. Then in a skillet over medium-high heat, I like to add in a little bit of sesame oil and then some vegetable oil. Then once that's hot, I'm going to add in some minced garlic and let that cook for like 30 seconds to a minute. And then I'm going to add in all of my steak and let that cook until it's completely cooked through. I do this over a medium-high heat, so like any water that cooks off the steak kind of evaporates. Once the steak was done, I added in that sauce that we made and just let that simmer over a medium-low heat, and it will start to thicken. Then once it does start to thicken, I like to add in my broccoli. And while my broccoli is simmering away in that, I like to turn it down to a low and let it just continue to simmer while I am cooking up my noodles. I just bring some water to a boil, and then we're going to cook up 3 packets of ramen. We don't need the seasoning packet. If you can buy just the noodles, you can buy that and use those instead. Otherwise, you just have to throw away the seasoning packets. I don't know what else you could do with them. I'm sure you might be able to do something with them, but I always just throw away the seasoning packets. Cook those up until they are soft, and then you can add them into the beef and the broccoli, but I prefer to leave the noodles on the side. That way if there's extra meat, you can always make more ramen later, because the ramen noodles just kind of like get soggy and fall apart, and they don't hold up for leftovers very well. I've made this recipe quite a few times now. Elijah loves it and requests it often. I would definitely say this is a family favorite. Wednesday night, we did some barbecue pork chops, mac and cheese, and a salad. I am doing these pork chops in the air fryer. I'm just starting off by seasoning them on both sides with some garlic powder, onion salt, paprika, and some pepper. And then I am spraying them with some olive oil cooking spray. And I'm doing that on both sides. And then I'm going to transfer them to my air fryer basket and stick them in my air fryer on 375 for about 20 minutes. After the 20 minutes, I pulled them out of the air fryer, and then I just brushed them with some of our favorite barbecue sauce, and then I stuck them back in the air fryer for about 5 minutes so that barbecue sauce could get like caramelized on the pork chop. To keep things super simple for dinner, I just made a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese and then pulled out the stuff for salad. We had salad with this. The pork chops were delicious. I love doing them in the air fryer. Super easy. Thursday night, I made another crock pot meal, and this is actually one of our favorites, but I did a little twist on it. I had this Southwest Ranch Chicken Street Taco Seasoning Mix from Aldi that I had been wanting to use up. So usually I would just use regular taco seasoning, but instead of doing that, I added this seasoning packet in there, and then I did 28 ounces of enchilada sauce, whatever is your favorite. This is 1 can of the Target brand and 1 can of Old El Paso, the little like 14.5 ounce ones. So added those in there, put a lid on this, and then just let it cook on low for about 6 hours. And then towards the end of the cook time, you're going to want to take 10 corn tortillas and cut them into strips. I like to cut them into long strips and then cut them in half so that they're a little bit smaller. It's easier to like get a bite full of the enchilada casserole thing. And then you can go in and shred up your chicken. I use my little meat masher, shred it all up nice and good. And then you're going to add those tortilla strips in here with that, and then some shredded cheese. And I add some to this and mix it up, and then I add a layer of cheese on top, and then put a lid on this and let it sit at minimum 15 minutes, but up to like 30 to 40 minutes you can do. I don't really notice a difference. The tortillas just get a little bit like softer the longer you let it sit, but really after 15 minutes it's ready. You don't have to let it sit that long. The crock pot is really hot. It doesn't take long for those tortillas to start to get soft. You can also top this with other stuff. I know some people do olives in this, but my family doesn't like olives. And then you can top it with some other toppings. We like to do some lettuce, some pico, some taco sauce, and some sour cream. And it is absolutely delicious and super filling. It's a quick and easy way to make some like chicken enchilada style meal. And that is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. I hope that y'all enjoyed it. I hope that you got some new ideas for some meals to try. If you did, let me know which ones in the comments down below. And if you made it here all the way to the end, make sure you leave me a smiley face emoji in the comments as well. I hope y'all have a good week, and I will see y'all on the next one. Bye!